2 days after the Supreme Court held only judges will appoint judges, striking down the law that would have given executive a role in the appointments, Finance Minister Arun Jaitley took to Facebook to voice his opinion on the move. Coming down heavily on the apex court's verdict, Jaitley said Indian democracy cannot be a tyranny of the unelected and it would be in danger if the elected are undermined. Comparing the judgment to a 9 p.m. television debate, Jaitley contended that politician bashing is the key behind striking down of the National Judicial Appointment Commission. The key rationale, he said, behind the majority opinion appears to be independence of the judiciary is an essential ingredient of the basic structure of the Constitution. Let me now quickly cut across to consulting editor Rajdeep Sardesai, who is joining us on the phone line for more on this. Rajdeep, a lawyer himself, Arun Jaitley, and a senior minister taking on the apex court. How do you see his outburst?
I think it's very clear, Ankit, at the moment that the political class has been taken a bit aback by the manner in which the judgment has gone against it. I think there was a general belief that while the court would put in certain conditions, that they had decided more or less that we would move beyond the collegium system. Particularly the basic structure argument that had been made by the majority opinion appeared to be on a slightly weak ground, and to that extent Mr. Jaitley may be right in suggesting that it is representative of political passion. The question, of course, Ankit, now is that is the government willing to risk a confrontation with the judiciary and actually either ask for a larger bench of the Supreme Court, a 9-judge bench, to decide this, or will it go back to Parliament in the winter session and say that they still intend to go ahead with the NJAC or a slightly reformed NJAC? I think Mr. Jaitley's statements are preparing the ground for a possible attempt by the government with the support of the opposition to create a reform NJAC and then take that once again to Parliament and virtually challenge the courts to usurp what Mr. Jaitley calls is the supremacy of Parliament. So I think his statement suggests that there are those within the government who believe that the status quo cannot be maintained, we cannot go back to the collegium system, and we need a new system for electing judges.
Rajdeep, if this goes, as you are suggesting, that there might be a thinking within the government that that needs to be relooked, if it goes to a 9-judge bench, it will be unprecedented. Also, this is possibly the very first time that the Modi government finds itself on the collision course with the judiciary.
Yes, well, you know, whether they can actually go to whether they will take the risk right away of going to a 9-judge bench seems unlikely at the moment. The judiciary itself has suggested November 3rd as a date where people can bring in suggestions and recommendations on how to improve the existing collegium system for appointing judges. What is more likely is that the government will now try and get bipartisan support and try and see if that bipartisan support can be taken to Parliament during the winter session and then put pressure on the judiciary. Because yes, you're right, otherwise we are heading for a potential confrontation with the judiciary, which would not be in the interests of either the judiciary or the executive. The question is Mr. Arun Jaitley speaking for himself?
Okay.
Or is he speaking on behalf of the government? Because other government spokespersons have been a little more muted in their criticism of the judgment, and already we've seen the Congress party has used the opportunity to target the government, saying because the government has made flawed appointments to institutions like the FTI and others, therefore the judiciary is naturally suspicious of the government's motives. So I think we have to wait and see whether the government can actually take the risk of taking it to a full bench of 9 judges. What is more likely, and this reflects the trust deficit between the government and the judiciary at the moment, what is more likely is that they will take it to Parliament and see whether they can get some kind of a parliamentary consensus once again.
Okay, let me just take that to Brijesh Pandey, who's also joining us on the broadcast. Brijesh, as Rajdeep was pointing out, what are your sources within the BJP saying? Is this the opinion of... all right, so I've been told that Brijesh's line has been disconnected. Rajdeep, if as you are suggesting, if it is the government might want to take it back to the Parliament, this NJAC was a unanimous consensus between all the political parties. Do we once again see the entire political spectrum, taking on the judiciary?
Look, if it has to be reformed, and in some stages some changes have to be made. For example, a clearer definition of the eminent citizens who will decide on appointing judges. Then the entire process will have to be gone through again. Whatever amendments are made to the NJAC Act will have to be approved once again in Parliament by state assemblies, brought back to the President, and then whether there is a judicial challenge and review to that remains to be seen. But clearly there is a section within the government and the political class which believes that this form of judicial supremacy, or what Mr. Jaitley is calling the tyranny of the unelected, cannot go unchallenged. So the real question is, has Mr. Jaitley spoken in his capacity as a lawyer, or is he speaking in his capacity as one of the senior most voices in the government? And I think that's what we'll have to wait and see, whether when the winter session of Parliament comes, whether the Jaitley line prevails, or whether the government doesn't want to risk a confrontation with the judiciary at this stage.
Rajesh, stay on with me. Justice R.L. Anand is also on the phone line with us. Sir, how do you see this outburst of sorts from the most senior minister within the government of India?
Sir, I have the occasion to listen to the views of Ravi Prashad Singh, as well as Ravi Shankar ji, as well as Mr. Jaitley. I even read the views of Mr. Salve. I even tweeted two, three tweeted on the Twitter, and I disagreed with the views expressed by the Honorable Law Minister. Honorable Law Minister talked about the parliamentary sovereignty. I wrote to the contrary that its sovereignty lies with the nation, not with the Parliament. Parliament is a supreme legislative body, of course, but it has to frame law within the Constitution. The basic character of the Constitution is the independence of judiciary. The theory of checks and balances cannot be resolved by any stretch of legislation, whether it's a constitutional amendment or otherwise. This is the basic structure of the Constitution. This has been so upheld in Keshwa Bharti case long back. Today I have gone through the views of Honorable Mr. Jaitley, where the Finance Minister said that the views expressed by the Honorable Supreme Court are erroneous. With due respect to the Honorable Finance Minister and the Law Minister and to the Government of India, I say that even the Supreme Court, while giving this judgment, they never said that the collegium system is 100 proof.
Yes.
Is 100 point proof. They say that this requires some introspection, analysis, in-depth study.
All right.
And they have fixed for this. But to say that the collegium system is absolutely wrong or incorrect, is that perhaps I do not agree with the Honorable Minister.
Right. So,
and even to the other.
So I request you to stay on with me. Mr. Manish Tiwari of the Congress Party is also joining us on the phone line. Mr. Tiwari, the finance minister of the country, a lawyer himself, he in no uncertain terms has taken on the apex court of the country. He calls it the tyranny of the unelected if the elected are undermined. You are you've been a member of Parliament. How do you see this statement coming in from the finance minister?
Well, the finance minister in private conversations had used the same language with regard to the Aam Aadmi Party 3 or 4 years back. So he is only regurgitating that phrase and using it in a different context. The finance minister is absolutely wrong. There, the Supreme Court of India, way back in 1973, in Keshavanand Bharti's case, had laid down the doctrine of the basic structure of the Constitution. And the doctrine of the basic structure clearly delineates and underscores that one of the basic features of the Constitution is the independence of the judiciary. And on that touchstone, the Supreme Court has quashed the constitutional amendment.
But Mr. Tiwari, what about the fact that it was a unanimous decision, a consensus decision of all the political parties?
That doesn't matter. Eventually, Parliament is not the only institution in the country. The entire edifice of democracy is underpinned by the doctrine of checks and balances. So therefore, just because the legislature has unanimously come to a certain conclusion, that essentially does not make it right. And that is what the Supreme Court has said.
Before I let you go, sir, very quickly, if the government once again wants to build some sort of a consensus on this matter before they take it to a 9-judge bench or whatever the next decision is, will the Congress be ready to support the government on NJAC once again?
They can't, for the simple reason that once the constitutional amendment has been quashed on the touchstone of the basic structure, there is nothing which the government can do. In fact, that is the essence of the Keshavanand Bharati judgment, that the basic features of the constitution are beyond the amending power of the parliament. So the Supreme Court once for all has settled the issue.
Okay.
Unfortunately, the finance minister and all his colleagues are only foaming in the mouth. They know that nothing can be done.
Thank you so much, Mr. Tiwari, for joining us on the broadcast. Also, thanks to Justice R.L. Anand for joining us, and consulting editor Rajdeep Sardesai for sharing your views on this very strong outburst of sorts from the finance minister after the decision of the Supreme Court on NJAC.